Hello and welcome back to X-Plane 11. Thank you very much for joining me in this video, and today we are going to be looking at X-Plane 11.3, or more so I'm just going to be talking about X-Plane 11.3, my experiences with it so far, what's changed. I might show you a few things here and there. One of the really important ones I am going to show you, which is the response curves, but I'm going to talk about a few bugs that are currently in the software that they're working on and they know about, some of the fixes, some of the airports, what they've changed, and how things are generally progressing in X-Plane. With it, I'm going to be flying somewhere around the south of London, so currently we're at Gatwick, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. And we're just sitting here at Gatwick on the runway, and we're going to be taking off, and we'll see. We'll just fly where we want to fly. Currently it's 6:30 in the morning or thereabouts, and yeah, we might end up in London. And of course I do have the fantastic Orbex Great Britain South scenery, True Earth Great Britain South. I am looking to get Central and North, and reviews of them should be coming up as and when I can get a hold of them. But for now, we're going to have a look at X-Plane 11 with the X-Plane 11.3 update. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Now, with the updates for X-Plane 11, one of the first things I'm going to mention is that I am not running on my normal graphics card. So what you're going to see maybe is something that lags a little bit more than you're used to. On the other hand, one of the things I have immediately noticed about X-Plane 11.3, or the 0.3 update, is that, yeah, I don't really have any of this done, is that it's smoother. The performance is actually smoother. So we're actually going to go through some procedures of starting up this aircraft whilst I talk about that, and I will, once we're in the air, we'll start looking at a few of the change logs themselves. I think there's been a few changes to the ATC actually, so we might use Avitam to see what the ATIS is, and see if the ATIS sounds different or if anything like that has changed. So landing gear down, parking brake has been set. Avionics are off. There we go. Avionics are off. You're off. Fine. Mixture is idle cutoff. Yep. Battery master switch on. I've already done the check for fuel, so we don't have to worry about that. Check operation. Yeah, we're fine. Flaps, we can check operation on that. They work. That's absolutely fine. Trim neutral. Let's have a look at the trim wheel. Is it neutral? It is not neutral. So I'm going to bring that up to neutral. Just looks to be about there. That's now neutral. Baggage door, yep, that's fine. All of this we're going to assume is absolutely fine. It probably isn't. Something's probably going to go wrong. Circuit breakers are all in. That's closed. Propeller can go full forward. Fuel selector is on the desired tank. It's currently off, so I'm going to stick it on to the left tank for now. There we go. I'm sure it switches off. It switches on its own as I've set it up. Throttle can go 1/2 inch open. Alternator switch can go on. Battery master switch can go on. Here we go. Fuel pump goes on. Mixture rich. And then we're going to go to idle cutoff. Like that. And now we're going to start the engine. And we're going to bring the mixture to full rich as we start the engine. Starter engage, and engine start is confirmed. Magnetors are to both, that's fine. Throttle is going to be adjusted to give it just a tad more, like that. Oil pressures are good. Things are running absolutely fine. Fantastic. That we don't have to worry about, and I'm not going to do the ground checks, so we don't have to worry about that. This we're okay. We're going to switch on some lighting in here. I'm going to bring those props back just a bit so I can actually make sure that that's on. Yep, landing light can go on, that can go on, that can go on, pizza heat can go on. We'll bring this on, we'll bring this on, we'll bring this on, like that. We'll bring this on. Is it that one? There we go. Fantastic. Alright, now we're going to do the whole takeoff and everything, so we don't have to worry about that. Alright, let's bring ourselves back into this position. And let's talk a little bit, before we get up in the air, let's talk a little bit about some of the changes, the new features and improvements. So there's a new ATC voice system. So let's have a look. Let's see if let's see if that ATC voice system is on the ATIS as well. So we're going to use the Avitab plugin, and I'm just going to pull up Echo Golf Kilo Kilo, which should be Gatwick. There we go. And let's see. Gatwick information 136.52, I think. 13652. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can do that. 13652. Can we hear anyone on it? Hello? No, I don't. I wonder what the ATIS is for Gatwick. It's supposed to give me the ATIS somewhere. Gatwick ground approach. It's got the weather updated. Why? That's one bug that I haven't yet figured out. I don't know why it does that. Right. Gatwick ATIS. Let's find out. 13652. That is correct. I've never actually used the ATIS. I've never actually... let's change it on this. That's probably what it is. Let's change it on this. This is probably where we need it. So let's go 13652. Yes, that would make more sense. Probably works here. There we go.
Golf 600 Zulu weather. Wind calm. Visibility more than 10. Sky clear. Temperature 14. Dew point -15. Altimeter 9.2. Arriving runway to 6 left. Departing runway to 6 left. Goodbye on initial contact. You have golf.
I'm not entirely sure if that ATC has changed. So I'm not going to say anything on that. Obviously the ATC voice system is still a work in progress, and I've never used the ATC in this, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. So let's have a look at other things. This is what it says. Particles editor for aircraft. So there are a number of changes that are to do with less about the aircraft itself. I'm actually going to bring that down quite a bit. Less to do about the aircraft itself and more to do about aircraft editors and things like that. So the airfoil editors, the aircraft editors and things that you can then change and developers can use. So there's lots of development changes within this. So we've got an autopilot and aircraft systems update. Now with this there's a lot that has actually changed. So we'll be looking at the aircraft systems in a little bit more depth once we're in the air. They've improved the industrial zones in US AutoGen, reorganized the library. There are some... I don't know what FM means. FM improvements. Frequency modulation? No. The shader system has been rebuilt as part of port to Vulkan. Now this is an important one because Vulkan should give us better multi-threading performance, multi-core performance therefore, and should make this sim a lot smoother overall and easier to handle currently as opposed to OpenGL, where it is, as far as I know, it's a little bit difficult for the whole multi-threading process to work effectively or efficiently. The only downside of Vulkan is that it's a lot harder to implement, I think, than OpenGL, because OpenGL is a lot easier, I think, in terms of how you program it, the API you use, things like that. It's I suppose what we say in computing, it's a higher level. It's a high level API. I think Vulkan is either a mid or low level API. That's as far. I don't know too much about Vulkan and how it works, but this is what this is what I know. This is what I know of it. The X-Plane, all of X-Plane is now 8.33 kilohertz aware. Not exactly sure what that means. Panel resolutions have been bumped to 4K, which is great. Updated the airspace to 2008 and Navigraph default data to 1708. So that's a bit of changes to the data files and the configuration on that. So that's better airspace, or more current airspace should I say. Sector altitudes in the VFR map, so let's have a look at the VFR map right now, and you can see there quite easily, you can see the sector altitude. So we've seen this before, I've spoken about sector altitudes before, But you can see here 1,500 feet in this area. We've got a sector over here which is 1,400 feet. This sector here is 1,300. This sector here is 1,400. So you can see each sector marked or denoted by the lines has an altitude. 1,300 there, 1,400. And if we go up towards Echo Golf November X-ray, where we've been so many times, right there you'll see we've got 1,500, and then if we continue going beyond, there's 1,600, and then we go down and up a bit again. Now these are also different. These are some quick points, carriers. So you can see these as landmarks, oil platforms, carriers, that you can just jump to very, very quickly. So they've added that in, which is, I think that's actually quite interesting that they've added stuff like that in. What's that? Elstree. Okay. So that's around the area. So you can see there's another frigate. There's a frigate sitting there. We've got battleships and aircraft carriers, whatnot, all around, which obviously that wasn't there before. So they've added these points of interest to have a look. Right. What else do we have? Updated joystick config files to a few other things. Added new UI options to enlarge the font size and manually setting joystick curves per axis. Right, here we go. Time to show you this, because this is one of the big changes. So if we go to joystick and I go over to this. Now before, what we do is we'd go to control sensitivity, and you can see that this is my control sensitivity. And on the control sensitivity, it's we've got this control response and stability augmentation. Now the stability augmentation is just to help us control the aircraft a bit better, so it stabilizes the aircraft when we're pulling back on the stick or things like that. Now the biggest issue that I think a number of people have had is stability augmentation on the pitch axis. So that's one of the things that people have had trouble with. And then you've had a little bit on roll. Rolling yours been okay. That's why mine is pretty low. But I have had some problems on the pitch axis. So I had higher stability augmentation. On that, we've got that to be changed now. So I am now going to get rid of the stability augmentation on all of them. And I'm going to go to this, response curves. So now we have response curves for the roll. So as we roll through, you can see that we have, as I'm taking the roll left and right, it's moving it as we want it. Now, what we can do, and I'm going to do this on the pitch first, what we can do is we can go on this response curve and we can add in a point. So, for example, I'm pulling back there. That's fine. But it's kind of very high at the top. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring this down. Now, this doesn't make it necessarily more realistic. What it does is it makes it easier to control the aircraft. This might not be realistic. I mean, an aircraft doing that is not realistic at all. But it makes it easier to control, given any limitations in the sim. So, for example, I am going to put mine something like this. So now I should have finer control as I am lifting the nose of the aircraft. And once I go past a certain point, then it's going to lift up more significantly. So as you can see here, if you look at that, 0.7, 0.5, yes, we've got 1 to 1, but look at that. So at the moment, 0 to 0, you can see there, 0.2 is only 0.08. So it's fine-tuning it, and then it comes back to where it should be and comes back to the 1-to-1 axis. This is probably going to take a little bit of getting used to. With that, we can also add, for example, dead zones. So if I bring this down, I can add a bit of a dead zone right there. And I can just turn that to cubic. Okay, I'll turn that to cubic, and I can add just a little bit of a dead zone. So now my rolling is just at the start is just a little bit dead. Okay, it's just dampened a little bit. Not massively, just a little bit. Little bit of damping just to help it out. Okay, so that helps us control the aircraft there. I'm actually going to change this to cubic as well. I prefer the cubic ones. Yeah, personally I prefer cubic, and if I add another there, that should help straighten out that line. And then we've got the same for yaw. Yaw really isn't too much of a problem in all honesty, so I'm not going to really mess around with the yaw. So that's it. We are good. What? Landing lights, right switch. Ah, pinky triggers. Oh right, let's try and contact ATC through that. I didn't know that. I need to. All right, I'm gonna have to play around with that. But anyway, so there's something for us there. Right, let's have a look at ATC. What we're gonna do? I've never actually tried this, so I don't really fancy. I don't fancy doing that. Can I just request altimeter, request clearance? Interesting. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get in the air. So here we go. Let's make sure that we have our flaps down. So let's just take a look around. Flaps are down stage 1. And you can see that it's actually very easy to move around. In fact, before we get in the air, one other thing I need to show you. If we go to free camera. And you can see how much smoother it is. And I don't know whether this is because of the porting of the shaders that they've just managed to optimize it whilst we're at it. But one thing you're going to notice is that there are different types of aircraft around now, as opposed to what we used to have. So we used to just have a couple of different types. Now we've got a lot. We've still got US Airways. I think what needs to change is they need to have it per country. So over here we'll have more British Airways, more Virgin Atlantic, things like that. But we've got Emirates over there. We've got an Alitalia, that makes sense. United 74, Emirates 777, a Delta. I don't know what that aircraft is. Is that an MD? It's not an MD-80, is it? Might be an MD-80. Actually, I don't know what that aircraft is. That might be the MD-80. Then we've got another Delta 777, another 777 there. We've got what looks to be an A320 of some little aircraft. Got another one there. We've got an SAS aircraft there. Air New Zealand, that makes sense to be here. Air Berlin, that makes sense. Deltas, maybe not. Air Berlin, again, makes sense. All these FedEx ones are still sitting around. That needs to be fixed, but there is improvement. And of course, we've got a British Airways one right there. You can see a British Airways aircraft sitting right there, as you would expect, a British Airways 777. So there are these aircraft that are in these areas, which I think has changed since last time. So last time we didn't actually have all these aircraft sitting around. Also, I just noticed, can we actually see London from here? In that direction. There's Heathrow. Yeah, there's London. Yep, there's some of the famous buildings. Awesome. Fantastic. Right, anyway, let's get ourselves in and let's finally take off. After talking for 20 minutes about what's going on, let's take off and just see what else we can find. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that drag-wise, this aircraft does feel a little bit different drag-wise, so I think they may have changed a few things on the drag. So that was because of the new response curve. Positive rate, gear up. So because of that new response curve, I had to really adjust that, and I never actually managed to make that adjustment. Okay, so we need to play around with the response curves a little bit more, but that was a very stable takeoff. Right, let's get ourselves into some sort of climb at this moment in time. 500 foot per minute. Let's try 500 foot per minute. No, doesn't want to do that. And in fact, what I could do is I could potentially... Nope. Does it not want to recognise? There we go. Little bit of head tracking. And you can see actually the turning is a lot smoother now. I'm actually able to turn the aircraft far smoother than I was before. Although I think I might need to play around a little bit with the pitch axis still. But I have a lot more control with this new update. Now, moving on from that, I guess we can talk a little bit about the autopilot changes. And with the autopilot changes, there are quite a few. Now, obviously, some of these aircraft are still using the old autopilot systems, as you would expect. But they've started working with new auto throttle modes. They've started working on auto land capabilities. Things like that, different codes, different CWS mode. The avionics systems themselves have been replaced. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch off the head tracking, only because it makes it easier for me to talk without the head tracking on. Right, let's level ourselves off. Do that. Bring those props back. Bring that back. There we go. Actually, not that far. That's probably as where I want it. Fantastic. Okay. Right. So the few other things that we can talk about. Like I said, the default autopilot of the Garmin G1000 system digital flight deck. They've been adjusting things there. They've been trying to work on altitude pre-selectors and things like that, and all of this belong in the configuration. So when you're configuring the aircraft and when you're working on that kind of stuff, that's when this all comes into play. What I'm going to do is I'm just moving back just a little bit so that you guys can see what's going on a little bit more. And yeah, I think that once I get used to this stability, this new response curve, this is going to be really smooth. I think we're looking at really smooth flying over here as we head in towards London. So for example, they've got the vertical speed mode does not default. See, they've got an example here. I'm going to read from one of their change logs for developer.explain.com. And they're talking about the STEC 55 with altitude pre-selector. Now, like the STEC 55, but with an altitude pre-selector that allows arming altitude capture. And note the pre-selector takes its pressure altitude from the static system in X-plane and needs to be barrel calibrated in addition with the pilot's altimeter, or it will level off at surprising altitudes. The altimeter setting for the altitude pre-selector is on the data ref, so it gives you a data reference. And then it says that unlike the GFC 700, vertical speed mode does not default to arm the altitude capture. In order to engage vertical speed with armed altitude capture, you've got another command that you need to press, and they give you the command for that. And it says on the real autopilot, this is accomplished by pressing the VS and altitude buttons both simultaneously. So they're trying to work on getting these systems in where, you know, you have to press two buttons simultaneously. They're trying to bring that into X-Plane 11 so that you can actually use these systems. Right, where's I saw a few of those buildings. What are we looking at now? That's the Dartford crossing again. Having a look in towards London. Looking good. Looking good. And lovely. Okay. Fantastic. That's the M25, right? Yep, that's the M25. We're crossing into London. At this point in time, we are crossing into London. Anyway, so, you know, they've been working on a number of these things and a number of those changes. There's lots and lots of autopilot changes. It says summary, but there are so many changes that there are available. They've been working on things like propeller feathering. So, you know, they've got some explanation about the propeller feathering systems and how they work and what's been updated on that. Anti and de-icing systems, the oxygen systems have been changed. Autopilot parameters, as I was talking about a few parameters there, they've been changed. They've fixed turboprop engine governors, vacuum systems, vacuum gyro limitations, and caging. So they've managed to change a number of things there. On top of that, and this is where obviously we're looking at this in X-Plane, and I don't know whether this is some sort of placebo effect or this is actually happening as we cross into the into Greater London. Yes, this part of London is still not developed, but this is all London. All of this is London. Don't know which junction that is. I'm not sure what the smoke's all about. That I'm not sure. I'm actually going to check that. I'm just going to check outside for this. I have no idea what that's about. I mean, that's the exhaust, obviously. Oh! Okay. That's new. That's actual exhaust. But unfortunately it's coming into the aircraft because I'm assuming this aircraft isn't quite ready for it. But that's actual exhaust. Okay. Fantastic. So we've got flight model improvements. So we've got wing force improvements. New drag coefficients in airfoil files are now more accurate post-stall. So this makes no difference when the wing is not stalled, so whilst we're flying. But when you actually stall the aircraft, then it makes a lot of difference. So there's that. This is not a change to X-Plane, it's a change to the airfoil maker and the airfoil files that we distribute. So that's not something that we're going to notice in X-Plane directly. We have to actually see it. We have to actually see people change that. So there you go. So they're saying to third-party aircraft makers, do a batch conversion on your airfoils in the airfoil maker and then retest any post-flight stall, and you'll see that the drag's initially higher, so then any adjustments that you want to make. There are propeller and prop wash modeling improvements, so you see that as well. So that's pretty cool. There are downwash modeling improvements, so they've combined data from a number of sources to see if they can fix that. There are engine improvements, better jet engine modeling, for example. So you've got single spool and twin spool jet selectable in plane maker. So again, that's for add-on aircraft or aircraft developers. Let's actually sit about here and move our view like that. It's probably better. So that's going to be interesting. I'd like to see how Zebo reacts to that, for example. Yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing that. Other things, nice little improvement in the manifold pressure for non-turbo aeroplanes, so they've got that. But yeah, I'm not going to be talking about all of this because there is a lot to generally talk about. Then we've got body drag and side force improvements. Now, I will be honest, I feel like, and again, this might be a placebo effect or this might be something to do with this particular aircraft or this particular setup, but I feel that this aircraft has a lot more drag. I mean, in the current configuration, I'm holding a nice 90 knots. I am at 2,620 feet or thereabouts, but I just feel like there is a little bit more drag on this aircraft overall. So I don't know whether that's a change in X-Plane currently that needs to have things changed. So yeah. Let's see what else there is. Some tweak ones. Trim and flight control deflection times are now a bit better. That's again to do with plane maker. A flap lockout if wings are swept, for example F-14. Things like that are now working. Yeah, there's a number of stuff going on there. And then they've got updated airports. So now in the release candidate, they have 8,247 airports with 3D scenery. They have 937 new airports with 3D scenery, as in they had no scenery or 2D only scenery in 11.25, now have 3D scenery. So that's 937 new airports for us to go play with. And then 137 airports did not exist at all in the previous release. And then there are airports that have improved scenery. And there are 1,222 airports with improved scenery. And then they give you a list, and the list is very, very large. It's airports from all across the world. I can see airport codes from UK, from the Netherlands. I see Canadian ones. I see American ones. I see German ones. I can see Spanish ones. So yeah, there are loads. I can see lots and lots of different codes across the world. I see French ones and whatnot. And then we've got some bug fixes for data references and labels and shadows and things like that. We're not going to go over bug fixes because there are so many, but there are sound bug fixes as part of it, and there are SDK binaries that have been replaced and updated, and trim fixes and yaw fixes and roll fixes, and a whole bunch of different things, including some optimization, it seems, of FPS. So there have been a number of FPS optimizations, which is really quite cool and kind of important too, because as I said, that I feel like this is actually quite smooth. In fact, this is smoother than what it was before. It is definitely smoother than what it was before, and before I found it was quite smooth as well. And on top of that, I'm also, remember I said at the start of this video, I'm not recording this on my usual graphics card because that died. So I'm recording on a graphics card that is comparable but slightly less powerful, and it's managing to hold its own. So overall I'm actually quite impressed with this. It's a very nice update. I think they're improving things. I would say that this is I think this is a preparation update, to be completely honest, especially with the whole shader, the Vulkan shaders and things like that. I feel like this is a preparation update, and they are preparing to change a number of things, and there's a lot coming for X-Plane 11. And I have heard, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I am pretty sure that this is still going to be supported with OpenGL until the end of its life, but there will be option to swap to Vulkan shaders. So for example, if you have a 10 series graphics card or a 20 series graphics card, or is it the AMD Radeon R9 graphics cards or things like that, anything that supports Vulkan shaders, you'll be able to switch to those. So for example, I'm looking at ordering in a new graphics card. When I get that in, it should support Vulkan shaders. No, it's not a 2080, unfortunately, but it will be a decent graphics card. It will be better than the one I had, and it will definitely be better than this one, so hopefully you guys should be able to see a difference. In any case, what the point I'm trying to make is that if you have a card that is capable of that, then you can use it, and you should see, I'm hoping, that as this starts being developed and as things start going through, you should see an improvement. So you should definitely see an improvement in your processing. You should see smoother frames. I mean, okay, I'll be honest. Right now, this is pretty smooth. Regardless, this is very, very smooth. But you know, I'm not on the highest graphics settings, and I'll show you my graphics settings before we land. So if I go over to graphics, and you'll see visual effects on maximum. That's on maximum, but texture quality is on high. Anti-aliasing isn't right the way up. Reflection details low. And of course, I've done the parked aircraft because I wanted to see those different aircrafts. I would like this to be increased. And by the way, there's the accessibility for the base config and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to have this all the way up, that all the way up, this up quite far, and just to see what we can have and what we can do. But anyway, now I'm going to land this aircraft. So let's see if I can remember how to land this aircraft. That's a big question. So we're going to land at London City. As you would expect, there's Heathrow there, but we're going to land at London City. So we're going to do an interesting, this is going to be very interesting because like I said, we're going to be able to see these response curves and see how this works. So time to activate my head tracking again. and start really getting prepared for this. So at this point we're going slow enough, I think, to actually bring in a stage of flaps already. So I'm going to bring in the stage of flaps. I'm going to bring those props up, bring that mixture up all the way, and I'm going, whoa, that makes the nose dip somewhat, and I'm going to release the landing gear, lower the landing gear, and bring ourselves into a descent. Now, I think we're fairly all right at the moment, so going to try and level ourselves off like that. Take a look at the landing lights. Yep, okay, I see them. And we're going to turn in now. We're going to fly right directly over Canada Square if we can. So as long as we're not climbing, we're okay. We don't need to do anything else. Currently it shows that we're too low anyway, so we're good here. We're just passing right over Canada Square. We'll line ourselves up. There's the Thames Barrier over there. There's Thames Barrier Park right next to it. Docklands Light Railway. And here we go. Time to bring ourselves into that descent and slow ourselves down from 90 knots. Keep that descent going. We now have 2 whites and 2 reds. Do need to sort of get this to focus on me a little bit more. There we go. Not landed this aircraft like this before. Second stage of flaps. And again, these response curves that we've now got are going to make it a little bit different, or a little bit difficult, should I say. We're now down to 70 knots. 70 is a good approach speed, I think. Again, look, this is what I mean. I feel like there is a lot more drag on this aircraft suddenly than what we've had. Also, if you guys are wondering, the approach for this airport is steeper than other airports. So that might be why the puppy indicates why it looks like I'm pointing the nose downwards, and it still looks like I'm going to miss the airport. It is a steeper approach into this airport. A much steeper approach, as you can see. I think it might be twice as steep at points. I'll have to check that though. And that's because of Canada Square. But you can see it's a very smooth approach in. I feel like maybe I shouldn't have done the yaw. It's a very interesting landing that this is going to be. And we are down. Flaps up. For some reason it still activates the brakes automatically for some bizarre reason, and I don't actually know why. But we are down actually quite nicely. That wasn't too hard a landing. So that's where we're going to end it. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on X-Plane 11. Leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know what you think. Don't forget to support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadgets. Your support would be massively appreciated. It would really help me out. Also, you can find me on Twitch. at twitch.tv/ecgadgets and on social media at ecgadgetslp for both Twitter and Instagram. That's all from me, and I'll see you guys next time in X-Plane 11, where I don't know what I'll be doing. I really don't know what I'll be doing, but it should be something pretty interesting. So I'll see you guys then.